Hey, folks, welcome to another Mañana No Mas podcast. We have been on a roll lately. I always say this to everyone that's a new listener and viewer. I don't schedule these. There is no schedule. I'm not pounding the pavement looking for guests. I wait until awesome people kind of fall into my circles and I say, man, this would be a great show. And this is the same thing that we have going today. Amy Vaughn is with us, and she came from Mali, so I just want to be sure that, the people are referred to us by other people sometimes. But Amy is fantastic. She is in the entrepreneur space, and I think she's going to have a great conversation. Amy, can you tell the listeners and viewers a little something about yourself?
Absolutely. So I am a former agency kid, worked as a creative director in marketing and advertising for P&G, Ford, Walmart, you name it, a lot of big brands, a lot of big budgets, and got pretty burnout, surprise, on the life and the style, especially once I started a family. And so I joined this tremendous group that I now own and operate called Together Digital, and finding that community, or them finding me, really is what made me become what I would call an accidental entrepreneur. I was entrepreneurial from childhood, but sort of life got in the way, and ambition and other people's expectations. And so I did the thing. I got on the hamster wheel of college and 4-year degree and marriage and life and career. And I never really stopped to think about running my own business until the founder of Together Digital pulled me aside and said, I'm going to go run for Congress, which is something one of our members encouraged her to do, something she never thought she would do. I had been volunteering as board president for 2.5 years, and had a fantastic board of 12 women working with me. And she says, you've been doing such a great job of operationalizing. I think you should run this company while I'm running for Congress. And so that was like literally a hallway conversation at a conference in 2019. By November 2019, she was off and running for political office, and I'm a CEO, and left kind of the whole agency track and life, not totally behind me, because I definitely support women in that space now, but definitely started leveraging all my skills, tools, and abilities for the first time, for as long as I could remember, running Together Digital. So yeah, a little bit of an accidental entrepreneur, maybe saying coming full circle back to entrepreneurship from when I was a kid.
I'm listening to you kind of describe the pathway, and I think that there are so many people now that just seem to take this all for granted, but it shouldn't be.
Mm.
Like school, family, parenthood, children in the mix, and then this responsibility that comes with corporate and expectations and extra hours and extra meetings. And right when I think all the promises of computers and technology were supposed to give us a little bit of freedom, it
Right.
just seemed to like tighten the shackles, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Um, do you have any like stories or war stories to tell about corporate and going, this, I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
So many. I mean, one that comes to mind is working on beauty brands. As someone who is really conscious, especially once I had a daughter, of like how women are represented in the media and in advertising. But behind the scenes, like you think it's bad what you see on the screen sometimes, like the work and the thought that goes into it, it was really difficult because we kept wanting to do something deeper, more meaningful, more benefit focused for people. Um, and you would think that more brands would start to wake up and realize after like Dove did what they did. And that was like, God, 15, almost 20 years ago, that campaign now, and it still has legs and it still influences the work. But working in beauty was a challenge for me, only because, some of the back and forth and the comments and the mindsets of beauty and things like that were really difficult, um, to sort of stand in this place of, I feel like I'm someone who really wants to champion all folks, all bodies and whatnot. And then to be able to have to like sell something, you kind of have to sell a piece of what feels like your soul. So that was kind of always a challenge. I would say bureaucracy was another thing that was always a big turnoff for me. And like sometimes like more almost authoritarian type of leadership styles, where it was like the loudest person in the room was always the leader, not like the quiet ones that when you said something, listen because I have something really important in the whole to say. The layers and the layoffs and, if you ever wanted to affect change, which was always something I wanted to do, again, since I was young, Um, I realized as a cog in that wheel of corporate, affecting change, even when you saw something down the road coming, you're like, train's coming, let's get off the tracks. You can't move the train. Like, and you can't get off the tracks. Like, you are shackled to those tracks.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about entrepreneurship is that now I am the engineer in the train and I can tweak the dials and turn the knobs. Clearly, I don't know how to drive a train, but that it allows me the freedom and ability to really operate a business that I feel is ethical, which is always important to me as well. So when I was working at companies, it wasn't just about my salary, my title, and the sexy work I got to do. Granted, all that was great and a lot of fun, but for me, it after a while, it just began to feel hollow. And I saw just a lot of, especially, and I know this happens in startups too, and in other entrepreneurial spaces, but the amount of women I've heard from things like, nearly getting date raped at their company holiday party and then it being swept under the rug. There's just a lot that gets buried within corporations to save the bottom line. And it's never people over profits. It's always profit, profit, profit. And so for me, for a number of reasons, I could kind of keep going on. We could fill the whole hour with the horror stories. But, I would say that for me, it was, a lot of like the bureaucracy, the ethics, and the ability to affect change, were kind of big things for me and reasons why I just kind of wanted out.
For me, it comes down to abuse of staff is one thing.
Hmm.
I always wanted to travel. And just
Yeah.
when I gave up hope and thought I'd never be able to travel, I got a
Uh-huh.
job with a company that sent me to Italy multiple times.
Yeah.
And then it was Italy, Spain, France, drove through Germany. So I got exposure to all these cultures and all these different, and I
Mm.
made friends with I'm a pretty gregarious person. And I'm not like this weird American on tour, right? It's not
Yeah.
like I'm not demanding at all. Like I just I want to acclimate to their space. And so tried to learn some of the language and made friends. And what I came away from, what I came away with from that was we are like way engulfed in our work in the United States.
100%.
It's like you could take 5 steps back and still
Hmm.
be a productive member of the global economy.
Yep.
And then I found that I really started to analyze my own time, and I was like, this job wants me to be here 14 hours a day. But how many of those hours am I productive? And then I thought
Mm.
about it. As an employee, I wasn't even I mean, I had great results, but hour by hour, was I a great employee? I was
Right.
walking around making coffee for people, chatting things up. What'd you do this weekend instead of,
Hmm.
producing work? And that's when it hit me like, if I'm self-employed and I'm in control of my own time and I'm productive when my body and brain want to be productive,
Yeah.
and I unplug when it's time to unplug,
Hmm.
I get all of that stuff that they talk about, the work-life balance, and then
Yep.
the peace, and all that seems to come my way. Corporate for me, the straw that broke the camel's back. I was in the car with a director.
Hmm.
The director answered a phone call and completely just lied to the person on the phone. And
Mm.
he lied all the time. Like he just lied all the time. And it was so
Hmm.
frustrating. We all knew it. We all talk about it. And here it was, just him and I in the car. And finally I just kind of snapped. And I said, I gotta know. Why do you do it? Why do you
Yeah.
lie to everybody? We all know it. And it's beyond comprehension. There's no
Hmm.
reason to do what you just did.
Yeah.
And he very calmly, without hesitation, and I'll never forget it, just very calmly looked at me and said, well, Kurt, that's the benefit of having a flexible moral compass. My reality changes as I need it to.
Oof. Yeah. That
And
gave me
I
the
thought,
yips.
that is like having a conversation with Satan to me.
Right.
I was like, that was the most like
Yeah.
matter of fact,
Hmm.
crazy response I ever heard from a superior in the space. Because he didn't even
Hmm.
try to deny it, you
Yeah.
know? And I was
Yep.
like, I gotta go. And 2 weeks
Yeah.
later, I was out of there.
Done. Yeah.
And just couldn't do it.
Yeah. I think mine was coming back from mat leave. Like it was with my second kiddo, my son, and I had been gone for 12 weeks, a great paid leave, which I was super thankful for, even though 12 weeks comparatively to the rest of the world, utter garbage. Um, but anyways, came back and I got yelled at because a salad was left in my mini fridge by my desk and nobody knew where the smell was coming from or what it was for weeks. And I was like, I literally worked until 8 o'clock the night before I had my kid at the agency, went home, went to bed, woke up at 5:30 with contractions, went and had a baby. I don't think I was thinking about my salad in the fridge for the last 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys, he had asked beforehand if he could borrow my standing desk converter. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm not going to be there for a while. So I let him borrow it. Well, he took it, but then like dismantled the whole rest of my desk to do it. And like all my plants had died. And then I walked in and the CFO's like, not the CFO, but like the head of like finance sees me and he's like, and I didn't understand the comment at the time. And I still honestly don't. I think he was just trying to make a friendly joke. But I mean, obviously I'd just come back from having a baby. And he's like, oh, did you take the stairs the whole way up to the 9th floor today? And I was like, what? Why are you calling me fat? Are you saying that I'm a strong mom and I could take 9 flights of stairs? Like, I didn't even know what to think. I didn't know how to act. So I just did the thing we all do when we see somebody saying something that feels wrong or inappropriate. We give the nervous laugh. And I just went back to my desk and I remember I was like, I can't cry at my desk. That's not what we do at corporate. I gotta go somewhere private. So that's what all these phone booths are for. They tell you they're for private calls and meetings. No, we're just all going in there and screaming into pillows and crying. And it cried for a few minutes. It was like the first day back to work, and I'm like not with my baby. My hormones are going wild, having to pump, like everything's about my body's uncomfortable and not my own. And I called the founder of Together Digital, and I was just like, this is the worst day ever. I don't want to be here, and I don't want to do this anymore. And I think I left like a month later, because just that welcome back was so difficult. Oh, and on top of it, it was wild because I had been working on a pitch for one of the military branches, and it was a massive pitch, like a $10 million account. And that was my first baby before my son came. Then I had my son. The pitch was supposed to have been done with. As soon as I got back, they put me right back on it. And they were like, nope, we're starting from square one again. It was supposed to be a done deal. And I was like, I am so out. Like, I am not going to live this again. And then we lost a major client because I was working on like a couple particular coffee brands, and we lost that client. And what happened was they let go my entire team around me, my art director, my copywriter, my designer, all gone. And I had my box packed. I was like, come and get me. Come on, let's go. Like, lay me off. I'll take a couple more weeks, right? And they didn't lay me off. Instead, they laid off a man who had been there for 20 plus years and was 2 years away from retirement. And they let him go and put me in his spot on his team.
Yep.
It was just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, it just felt so soulless. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, it's, and I don't want listeners and viewers to think that we're just commiserating about negatives. I mean, I think about all the positives that came out of the work.
100%.
Relationships, people I've
The
met,
people are the
I've
best.
networked with,
Yeah.
and the skill set. I mean, I became a SCORM expert. I understand, higher levels of learning now, curriculum development. I became a master at project planning, and so when it comes time for me to run my agency focuses on membership and learning websites, especially enterprise level learning sites. And so these enterprise vice presidents, they come down with these $400,000 websites they're paying for. And I go, yeah, my agency can duplicate that, give your learner a better experience, and I can cut your expenses in half.
Yes.
And they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, secret, I guess. Like, I'm not going to divulge the whole thing, but we run an agency. We've got solid tools. We actually work directly with the people that make the learning software. So we've got this wonderful, like, symbiotic relationship that allows us to offer this service. And I couldn't have mastered that or done any of that if I was like out of high school, wanted to be my own entrepreneur and started my own thing. I wouldn't be able to be in the space I'm in right now.
No, I agree. And I think it is all like that collective experience is super important when you're trying to go out on your own. Like I said, for me, it felt like I was always kind of stuck in a lane, and I really wanted to branch out into operations. But somebody once told me, like, creatives, they can't run companies. And it's not to so much commiserate it as it is to share the stories with some transparency and vulnerability so that other people who are listening know that they're not alone. Because I think there's a lot of like institutional betrayal blindness that happens where we just think this is how it is or this is how it's meant to be, and we accept and allow. And I think by us kind of sharing what we've experienced, the good and the bad, like I said, with a little bit of vulnerability and transparency, it allows for your like any listeners to kind of be like, whether you're planning to stay in the corporate route or not. I mean, that is a path for people. That is a path that works. Like that guy you talked about, that's definitely where he should probably stay. It's working for him. But and not to say all corporate people are bad or all corporations are bad. It is just, I think it's having these conversations is really important because there's a lot of people that maybe feel stuck with where they are and are afraid to take chances. And it's interesting because we were talking before we went live about how so much more of our industry in particular is going, freelance, contract, entrepreneur, specialized services. And I think a lot of that is indicative of us kind of yearning and wanting more, but also seeing a better way and wanting to make that better way happen. And but that's a hard thing to do when you don't feel like you have the tools, resources, and the knowledge. A lot of people will tell me, "Well, I want a secure job. I want a W-2," and I'll say, okay. Does that actually sound right to you? Because did you not just get laid off or let go? And how many layoffs have you experienced in the last 5 years? Entrepreneurship is a choice. It's like marriage. You wake up every day and you got to choose to stay with it and you got to work on it. And you can quit every day too, but you got to come back the next day. It is a choice and it's a different kind of stress. But at least to me, it's that kind of stress where you have some agency. And to me, it honestly feels more stable than any W-2 I've ever had. I've been running and managing my own mission-based business for the last 6 years, through COVID and so many other changes in the world. Just question your thoughts on what stability looks like. And then I think you might have your answer.
To your point, Mañana No Mas was launched during 2008, the financial crisis.
Yeah.
And we were able to grow and sustain a living for a family of 4 just on the income from that as a startup. Now, was it an opulent income? No, it was like beans in a pot, holes in our shoes. But, hey, we got a generator if the power gets turned off, right? But it's like, hey, we will figure it out, and then you come out the other side. And we ended up with clients like Ducati North America was our biggest client.
Nice.
And so, did that happen instantly? No, it took years before someone like Ducati picked up the phone and said, hey, is this you? We'd like to hire you to do something. But I think so many people think that initial sacrifice is just too much. It's just too much. But then I think to myself, well, what's the sacrifice to sit at home and reply to Indeed for 3 months and not get a job?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's when I got laid off. I went to corporate. So I was self-employed and then I got hired away by corporate and then I took another corporate job and then I got laid off again. And I was like, and I looked for work and it wasn't coming and COVID broke out. And I told my wife, I said, I'm exhausted. I can't do this. This is stupid. We're just going to relaunch Mañana No Mas and we're just going to see what we can do. And we were in California. And so I say this to people all the time, like how you surround yourself and where you set yourself up for success really matters. California was not a great place to relaunch a business. I mean, every month we were going further backwards with finances. And I caught myself as a business owner saying yes to bad deals all the time. Like working with clients I know I didn't want to work with, working on projects I knew I didn't want to represent. But I needed that money I thought I needed the revenue. Yeah. And what's interesting is if I look back now, hindsight 2020, did I really need that $3,000 to deal with that headache? No, I didn't. Right. Probably would have done better if I would have said no. But then we migrated to Kansas. We cut our expenses by 65%. Yeah. And kept almost the same revenue. And instantly all of our problems were fixed. I had the power to say no. I had the power to say yes to better deals. And our business has grown since migrating away from California. Yeah. But it's all those pressures that we put on ourselves. So let me just hit this topic, right? So you're in Together Digital. Together Digital, is that a service for women?
A female identifying and women, yeah. So we
Yeah.
started off as women in digital and started in 2016 in Columbus, Ohio, and it just kind of quickly grew, mostly with like the big movement towards like the Me Too movement. And at the time, there weren't a lot of women's like focused organizations like this. Now they're kind of everywhere, which is great to see. The spaces of support and solidarity is good. But yeah, we do focus on women.
Well, I can tell you, I went to a public speaking kind of networking
Mhm.
presentation weekend, and 80% of the women that stood up to introduce themselves, it was like a leadership speaking thing, right? And
Mhm.
they were like, I'm going to get this certification so that I can be a woman-owned business helping only women in this space. And I just kept thinking to myself, why do you want to cut your market down so hard? You're going to come away with skills and you only want to help half the population. Um,
Yeah.
and so and then as I got more skilled in business ownership and understanding an avatar and a niche and things like that,
Yes. Hmm.
um, people will give me pushback because people ask me, oh, who's your avatar? And I go, dudes that are 45 to 65 that own a, consumer goods production oriented business with distribution.
Hmm.
And then people, because I'm a dude, it's
Yeah.
oh, so you only want to work with men. And I get this weird, like,
Yeah.
back feed stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's organizations for people of color, there's organizations for women,
Sure.
they don't get that kind of slack. Well,
Yeah.
why am I getting the slack? But
Well, I think because majority of revenue and I mean, I think it's the numbers are still so disparaged, right? We don't have equality in the C-suite, and we probably won't for 100 years. Women-owned businesses, while they do by the numbers generate more profit, operate more efficiency, and when they are funded, do use the funding dollars better. They get maybe 2% of the venture capital. And so it's just as far as it goes, like with kind of focusing on those groups and supporting those groups, it's not about giving one over the other, right? Equality isn't, everybody standing on the same box. It's looking at somebody who's 5'4" or 6'5" and somebody who's 4 feet and giving somebody that 4 foot extra few foot lift to get them that 2 foot lift so that they can see over the same fence, right? And see the same opportunities. And we're just not there yet. So I think it's an equality thing, but also I think, running a women's organization for the last 6 years and beating this drum of equality, 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 there's a couple of things that I've come to notice. One, not all women are for all women. Women don't seek or don't give equal treatment to all women. So sometimes it irks me to say, if you can't be for all women, then you can't ask for equality, right? It's not just about helping this is only the white women. We got to get everybody else. We've got to get the Latino women. We've got to get the Asian American women, we gotta get the Black women, everybody, same opportunities. And socioeconomic, neurodivergence, like all of these factors, because we're also multifaceted. I look forward to the day when we can kind of shed and lose the labels because everybody is at the same bit of a playing field and we have equal opportunities for everyone. But it's just not there yet. Because of a lot of, I mean, it's just too much for me to even cite outside of the data I just threw at you. The other thing I've noticed outside of not all women for being all women, for being women, I have noticed that it's really hard for men to feel like they can be allies. And it's because their masculinity then becomes into question because are you a man if you support women? Are you a real man? And so there's a lot of toxic masculinity. And I think we need to champion, celebrate, and really start to embrace our male allies and really encourage men to not feel uncomfortable with speaking up for other people because they have the most privilege of all of us. And yet they feel just as silenced. Those who are allies and advocates are fearful because if they speak up, what are the other dudes in the room going to think about me if I don't speak up or if I speak up? But if I keep my silence, I keep my place. And this happens to anyone and everyone of privilege or, even if it's like, oh, I see this with women. Women supporting other women within the workplace doesn't happen often because this scarcity mindset of if I'm the woman at the table, all the other seats are filled. Like there's no room for other women. I am that woman, right? And so it's this whole scarcity mindset. And then all of a sudden it's like we're competing against each other. So, and I've just talked so much about women's issues and equality and the workplace stuff. And it does. It gets old. It gets frustrating. It gets exhausting because we're just saying the same things over and over again. And people are like, oh, echo chamber. And it's like, okay, well then for me, I think to move the needle, I've said it before about our conference that we just had 2 weeks ago. Real men attend women's conferences. Like, just because it's targeted towards women, men should go. Women walk into rooms that are targeted to men all day, every day. Black people walk into rooms that are targeted to white people all day, every day. Don't be afraid to be in a room where you are the only. It's going to, like, even what you said earlier, Kurt, about going to different countries and experiencing different cultures. Why can we be so open-minded about that, but we're too afraid to walk into a room full of Black people or a room full of women?
Well, if you've never been to Black church, you need to go to Black church.
It's the best church.
It's the best church.
You don't know
So,
what you're missing. You don't know what you're missing by not stepping into those spaces and getting a little uncomfortable. And so I don't think, I get what people are trying to like nitpick at, but I think it's because they're falling into the trap of us versus them. And that's not how I see it. This is about us as a whole. That means, when we show up, we all feel seen, heard, and valued, and regardless of any label or title you hold, in my opinion.
from a business perspective, I've absolutely leveraged women business owners in the fact. So, and I gotta monitor the way I say it because I don't want it to come out wrong. Perfect example. I got brought into a project as the sales engineer to present a web project to a department of government. Now, I never would have been able to be in the position to present the product to this department of government. It was a woman-owned business. They were specifically looking for minorities and female-run businesses, and that's where the government money was going to go, and all those things. I never would have even gotten a chance to bid on the job. Now, she doesn't know anything about how the internet works, but she's a woman-owned business and a minority, and she ticks the boxes. And so I get invited to go to the call. I go to the call. I get to present my knowledge, and I walk away as like, the domain authority of that topic. Right. With all those people that are in the room that I would not have had access to as a white male, just wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to. Had another similar deal where I had a client, female-owned business, had a contract with people in government to provide courses. And again, I never would have had the opportunity to do the work. So she didn't know how the internet worked either. But she hired me and said, build this project. This is what it needs to do. These, let me forward you the specs that, this government agency requires. And then we got to build the job. If I wanted to be a non-ally, angry, white male, it would have been like, I can't believe I should just get the contract because I'm the one doing all the work. The truth of the matter is the way it's set up, I'm not going to get the contract. So I just got to take the subcontract and squeak what I can off the back end of it. And it's okay if someone makes the money to broker the deal.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people get lost in that whole setup and they get angry. And it's not a time to be angry. It's a time to figure out, well, how do I optimize this for my gain in the situation?
Yeah. Well, and I think, and also recognize that feeling that you're having with this experience is the experience of minority business owners every damn day. Because they don't have access to the clubs. They don't have access to the rooms. They don't have access to the golf courses. They don't have access to the business executives that are all white male. Like, they can't even walk into the room. They are constantly being told, you're not the person for this job based on who they are. And if you can name 4 or 5, like a couple instances on one hand or even 2 hands, you're still really lucky. Because for others, that's like every damn day, and it's like, so I think that's like the challenge is I think, one, I agree with you, like, see it for what it is, work it how you can, but also let that help you gain some empathy versus anger. I always say, don't get furious, get curious. Like, start to question, wow, this feeling of being excluded because of who I am, my gender, or my race. What would it be like if this was my everyday? What would this be like if this had been the last, 30 years of my career? Where would I even be? I think sometimes we get so quick to get upset and mad, and it's like, what's the learning opportunity? And honestly, that's even the way I've gotten through certain things, like getting told, like, I had pitched a client a major bank and credit card, put everything into it, and came back from having my daughter and was told that even though I helped win the work, I wouldn't be the creative director assigned to it because part of the job was travel to Seattle from Cincinnati. And they were like, well, we just assumed you just had a baby. You don't want to travel. They didn't even give me the chance. They didn't even
Yeah.
ask me. They just assumed because of my parental status now. And it would have been also, I know, a raise and a promotion that went with that. And I got neither of those. And if I would have been a man coming back from having a baby, I can guarantee you I would have gotten that role because they'd have been like, you have a family to support now. We need to give you more money. But I'm a mom. So no. And I just had to learn from that. I had to learn that these types of work environments aren't for me, and choose differently.
Yeah. That's where self-employment really gives you the freedom to pick your path.
It does, yeah.
So
And work with the people you want to, like you said.
I think one of the things, according to the show notes here that I got, was like you want to empower women like in the networking space, like like expresses a networking gap.
Mhm.
And I feel like we almost touched the subject right there, and then we kind of steered away a little bit. But I think there's so many people, like for instance, my wife, she would hate going to networking events with me before. Like even if there was like sponsored by the company, right? I was corporately
Yeah.
employed. They drag us out to a dinner. She's like, right. And then we moved to Kansas and I said, hey, there's this entrepreneur meetup. It's at this brewery. I'm going to go. It's Thursday night. I would like you to go with me. And so she went, and she was like a rabid dog. I turned her loose and she went and attacked everybody in the room. I was like,
Great.
who's this woman? Who is this? But I think it was, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but new region, new area, didn't know
Yeah.
anybody in the room, didn't have to worry about any presupposed opinions from something else. Like there was no societal baggage
Yeah.
to take in there. Like you just walked in as yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you were able to execute. And she did an amazing job. And it's been that way for us ever since we moved here. Like
That's
it's
great.
so weird because people say, well, what's it like to start all over somewhere? I'm like, it's freaking amazing.
You came to the Midwest, baby. It's a different vibe.
Yeah, you can do whatever, you can be yourself.
Yeah.
And people really don't hang you out to dry. It's
No.
like you'll find your people.
Yeah.
Like I just assumed this was going to be a place that was full of conservatives. Turns out it's really full of people that
Yeah.
aren't conservative. But no one's killing each other in the streets over it.
Yeah.
It's
They cut.
they're
right?
still sharing a beer at the brewery, and
Yeah.
it's just different. It's totally
Yeah.
different.
It is.
What do you think is that overwhelming inner drive that causes or helps women to shrink away in the networking space?
Well, I think a lot of it is because networking wasn't really built with us in mind. The original kind of book on the subject was Dale Carnegie's, like, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Or no, is it influence friends and win people? Either way, it makes it feel like we're all prizes to be won. And granted, it was written in the 1930s when businesses were all, men and white men in suits. And the world was very different. They've done a number of editions. But, everything about networking feels gross. I'm not going to lie. I don't even care who you are. I mean, it's forced socialization that often puts us in uncomfortable places because it's not authentic. But I mean, I think what you and your wife might have experienced, and kudos to people who put on that event. Honestly, I think there's so much that needs to be done in order to really retool networking and the way that we do it and the way that we see it to help more people show up and feel like they can be themselves. So sometimes when, again, like we all wear the masks. When you walk into a room and you see a number of people that are all in business suits and, three-piece suits and jackets and skirts and things, you're like, and you walk in a pair of jeans and Birkenstocks, are you going to want to dive into there? No. And even though that's like a good picture to paint for like the external, but that's also what's going on internally, right? You can walk into a room and sense if these are your people or not. I really do believe in like the vibe. And so for me, it's really been about creating safe spaces for folks to walk in and truly feel a sense of safety enough to be vulnerable and open and share. And I think that the entrepreneur community is great at that because we've lived the corporate life. Most likely we've tried and failed a number of times. And I always joke and say, if you ever really want to get your butt handed to you and really learn about who you are, run a business. it'll turn you inside out. Like you have to, because there's nowhere to point the blame. You're the one running the business. And so you have to be able to become more self-aware. You have to be able to promote yourself. And you have to be able to believe in your skills and capabilities to keep a business up and afloat and employ people. And that's a lot. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit as entrepreneurs for that. But I do think, it's a testament to any event where somebody who normally shrinks away from networking walks into a room and feels comfortable enough to start working the room. That tells you more about the room. It's not just the person, it's like how the room influenced her, I would say.
Yeah, they do to your point, they do a really nice event. They do it every month, and completely laid back. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a three-piece suit event at all. It's at a brewery owned by another local business person.
Mhm.
And I find that when I go to these networking things, whether they're formal or informal, my goal is I'm not there to sell my business. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what people confuse. And I think we have a family member, right? And she's in insurance sales. And so I think she thinks that a networking event is where she is to go in and find 3 leads.
Yep.
And that to me is not networking.
No.
Like maybe it's my John Maxwell training that comes through, but
Mhm.
I'm like, who do you know that I should know?
Yeah.
Right? And I want to know who in the room rides bicycles.
Yep.
Like that's like I'm into riding bikes. I like to barbecue. I
Mhm.
smoke a brisket once a week. Like
Yep.
where are my people at?
Yeah.
And then once I find those people, I go to who do you know that I should know? And if it ends up in business, that's great. If it ends up in, a consultative Zoom call, that's great. But it doesn't have to, because networking isn't about the sale this week. It's about the connection that could lead to sales over years.
Agreed.
And so I think, and it's not just women, I think it's
Yeah.
in mass, I think a lot of people just misconstrue what the networking event is even
Mhm.
for.
Yeah. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. For me, it's like, and the way I coach women about it is go into the room, especially job seekers, looking for 3 people to help in some way, which always feels good. Because that's how we're conditioned, especially as women. We're the nurturers, we're the helpers, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're walking in and you're thinking, I have these skills, I have these abilities, I have these connections. If I just talk to 3 people and listen, it's such a big thing, listening when you're networking, not just doing the talking, but, listening and then thinking, "Okay, how can I help?" And I think that has really led to some amazing opportunities for me. And yeah, networking can do so much for you. It's the long game, like you were describing. It's a long game and it's reputation building, and relationship building. So if you look at it as reputation and relationship building, and I don't mean reputation as in like, oh, look at me walking around and I'm this person in persona. No, reputation is like your authentic self and who you are, what you do well. What the beautiful thing is opportunities then come to you. You don't have to run around work in the room, networking your butt off all the time. I think a couple great examples. I doubled my salary once through networking. Didn't even have to apply for the job. A executive creative director reached out to me because 3 other men had, basically, he reached out to them and was like, "You're all connected to this one person, this Amy Vaughn. What do you think of her?" And one was like, "I wanted to hire her for a full-time job, but she was moving out of the country, so it was, like, not the right time." The other one was a college professor of mine who was also a great mentor who worked alongside this guy. And the third was another who, when I was, a copywriter at an agency, wanted to hire me as a strategist. And so all 3 of these guys, like, sung my praises, and so JT just sent me a LinkedIn message and was like, "I have this job for this brand at this salary. Can you come to Michigan next week to meet the leadership team?" And it was double my existing salary.
Yeah.
And then the current business that I'm helping to run as managing director, the Marketer Collaborative, um, met another former agency guy who owned a media agency, sold it, but then owned the building still in the agency, or the building that the agency lived in. And I had been reached out to by this company that wanted me to franchise a co-working space. And while I was interested in co-working, I was like, I don't want a franchise, but I would need like an investor and or a ready-made space. And through another co-working group that I was like had been partners with and friends with for a long time, they literally sent me and Jim together. And the next thing I knew, that was in May, when I got introduced to him. By July, we were in business together, and by October, we opened our co-working space.
That's phenomenal.
All from networking, all because people are like, oh, Amy knows, one, she knows community building. Two, she knows connecting and running a business. And three, she's a former agency kid. So now that's what it's focused on is, the Marketer Collaborative. So it's like-minded folks that work in marketing and marketing adjacent tech fields and whatnot, kind of all working under one roof and sometimes collaborating on business together. So yeah, you kind of never know what's coming your way when you actually get out there and network. So if you're not doing it, highly recommend 10 out of 10. Just don't, to make sure you're going into the right rooms where you find your people, show up authentically, and follow up, by golly. Follow up and build those relationships.
Yeah.
People will trust you. If you say what you're going to do and you do it, that trust, it's going to get you so far.
Well, I think that is huge for the listeners and viewers of this show, because a lot of them might be thinking, I want to start something, I want to do something. And then how do you get started, right? I want to be a speaker, I want to be Tony Robbins. Well, you're not going to start out and be Tony Robbins. You got to start out and be somebody else first. There's a space in business, like you said, where business comes to you, where business grows by referral, where product market fit, right? Where you have an audience, you have a tribe, and they're pulling that product or that service out of you, right? Yeah. And I think so many people from the outside looking in struggle with that. Well, they're so lucky that, people came to them like that. And I'm like, it's not luck. Like,
it's a lot of time.
You have to do that sweat equity, that investment. You have to build that audience over time, and you have to be authentic. And to your point, stay in touch, follow up.
Yeah.
I've got 10,000 connections on LinkedIn, and everyone thinks some people think it's small because there's some people at 20, right? Sure. But I've had real life conversations with like 75% of those contacts.
Yeah.
And that's where people kind of freak out, because when I make the connection, I say, hey, if you want to have a break the ice quick call, not a sales call, let me know. And most times out of curiosity, they just go, yeah, what's this about? I just want to find out who I'm connected to. Who do you know that I should know? And how can we help each other? And if the answer is nothing and you just like my post, that's fine too.
Sure.
But at least we have the conversation, and then invariably someone in my space says, oh, I need this done or that done, or I need to hire somebody for whatever. And it's fresh on my mind. I'm like, oh, I just connected with that dude 2 months ago. Let's do a warm introduction.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you do it, how much it returns back.
Absolutely. I agree. It's worth every second. I think community, often people, like you said, 75% of 10,000, that feels like a lot. But, community takes time, but it also gives time back, because you're going to start to see those opportunities come to you, and you're going to spend less time chasing and selling and cold calling and all those things that give us the ick anyways. And you're going to get well-vetted work from people that you trust and that trust you, and good people. I think that's the other thing. It's like, that's the other reason why I love, working for myself, is that I just get to surround myself with really smart, talented, wonderful people. And I can be a little bit more selective at times, because not everybody's always allowed in the circle,
Yeah.
Because they don't deserve the time, the energy, or the talent. And that's kind of a power that's pretty cool to have when you're out on your own. So yeah, definitely worth kind of getting out there and spending more time doing it. It's one of those things, the more you do it, the easier it'll get, I promise.
You just described my version of what success is. The freedom to turn down that which is not a good fit.
Yes.
That's so perfect. Well, listen, how do people get involved with either Together Digital or you? How do people get in touch with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Amy P. Vaughn, Vaughan. You can message me there. I have a calendar, so we can do coffee chats. I do all the time blocking, so I can manage and make time for those kinds of things, because I do love chatting with people, learning more about them, and finding ways we can help each other out. Together Digital is togetherindigital.com. Beautiful community of amazing folks who really choose to show up authentically and help each other learn and grow. They're like, somebody once described it as like the concentric circles of expertise and generosity. And right there in that middle is that community. Like, these women want to see other women succeed. And if you're a guy You are welcome to check us out. I've definitely had men reach out. And, if you could think of a woman who would need a group where she needs to feel seen and heard, and encouraged to kind of get out there and do her thing, this is a great group for that as well.
That is perfect. Folks, all of these links will be in the show notes. I want to thank Amy for hanging out with me and being
Yeah.
gracious enough to come and spend some time on the show. And with that, we will see you next time.